Hello and welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic. My name is Adam Ryan Daniels, and today we are talking about something really exciting. This Friday, Daredevil is about to premiere on Netflix, and this is the first of 5 series. So we got Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and then a Defenders show where the 4 of them come together for a 13-episode arc. This is awesome. It's connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so all the movies. It's connected to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. It's all connected. So this brings up a good question. If these shows are successful, what do we want to see next? Assuming they might do a couple second seasons, right? So we might get a Daredevil season 2. We might get a Heroes for Hire season where Luke Cage and Iron Fist come together. We might get some sequels, which would be awesome. But here, I'm going to talk about 4 new properties that I think they should make. And then at the very end of this video, I want you to give feedback on who you want to see and what you think of these ideas. The first choice is a pretty easy one. I am talking about The Punisher, Frank Castle. The Punisher is a vigilante that he's kind of a former warrior, like a military man, came back, witnessed his wife and children murdered kind of in the middle of this mafia incident. So he then took it upon himself to get revenge, and now kind of travels and takes out the bad guys. And what makes Punisher unique is that he has no qualms about killing people, right? He will do whatever it takes, and that's really rare amongst our superheroes that usually have a pretty strict code of conduct, but he doesn't care. And so in the Marvel Universe, he's one of the few guys that will just say, take him out. So Punisher would be perfect for a series like this. In Daredevil and these new shows that are about to start, and then the Civil War movie, we're going to see more and more kind of vigilantism, right? We're going to see more people on the streets taking it into their own hands. And the Punisher is what happens when that kind of exponentially increases, right? What if someone with that sort of training did whatever they wanted? And it's kind of terrifying, but it'd be a cool dynamic to add into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That we have people kind of doing good and kind of they're abiding by these rules and they're heroes. But then we've got this crazy guy on the streets killing the bad guys. Right? It would fit in perfectly, and it would fit in with Netflix's kind of model, right? That they can go really gritty, really dark, really violent, and kind of tell the Punisher story right, but still coexist in the Marvel Universe. So I'd be really excited for that, and I think it would fit in naturally with what they've kind of started with Daredevil. Next up, I'm going to talk about someone that is not as well known to the casual fans. And this is a guy named Moon Knight. So his real name is Mark Spector. He is a former Marine, he worked for the CIA, and then he becomes a freelance mercenary. Okay, and while he's on a trip in Sudan, he kind of realizes that the guy he's working for is not a good guy, faces off against him and gets mortally injured. And he's kind of taken to this tomb in Sudan by these kind of worshippers of this god, this Egyptian god named Khonshu. And I believe that's how you pronounce it. And Khonshu basically speaks to him and says, hey, I'm going to give you one more chance if you serve as my avatar. That if you do good for me, if you serve me, I will bring you back to life. And that is when Mark Spector becomes the Moon Knight. And basically, as the moon goes through its phases, he is granted more and more strength, agility, and stamina. Basically, he becomes a better warrior as the moon becomes fuller. And he is just a mercenary. So now he kind of goes about and he tries to fight crime and stop bad guys to redeem for all of the innocents he might have killed while being this kind of freelance mercenary. So he's trying to redeem himself for all those past crimes. What makes Moon Knight really interesting, though, is that to separate what he's done from what he's trying to do and kind of different facets of his life, he begins to create almost multiple personalities. That he will act as a cab driver to kind of get low-level secrets and kind of like talk to the people, and then he'll act as this, rich financer of things to like accomplish goals. Like he kind of has these different personalities that he creates for different facets of his life. So he's a little crazy, and some of that bleeds into his fighting styles, that he might fight differently. That he kind of has just these different styles and personalities. So kind of really interesting for a television show to explore what mental illness might look like in the form of a superhero. So in the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both Moon Knight and Punisher are examples of what this increased vigilantism could look like. So I think both of those series would be really cool at showing that. And next up, we have a woman named She-Hulk, which is not the most creative name at all. So imagine Jessica Walters. She's a lawyer, average woman, but she gets caught up in the middle of another kind of mafia incident. Okay, we're noticing a trend that crime and crime bosses are still very active in this world that the Defenders have set up. Okay, so she's caught in the middle of something and she's injured, and she needs a blood transfusion. But luckily, her cousin, Bruce Banner, is in town. He doesn't want to, but he ends up giving her a blood transfusion, which moves some of his gamma-irradiated blood into her. But since it's a diluted sample, she becomes a less strong Hulk, but also more in control. So She-Hulk almost exists as She-Hulk all of the time. And so she doesn't have the same uncontrollable urges that the Hulk has. So she has kind of some of his strength and agility, enough to do some serious damage, but she's also in full control of what she's doing. She then uses her power and her kind of law knowledge to kind of fight evil corporations and things that are unjust, and she fights for what is right. So this ties in a couple ways to the other shows. So we have the Mafia, which could be characters we've seen in other series, right? So she's just caught in the middle of this. And also this would allow for a cool kind of one cameo from Mark Ruffalo to tie, again, Netflix to the bigger Marvel Cinematic Universe. And more Mark Ruffalo cameos, never a bad thing. And for my last choice, my fourth choice, I'm going to go with the Runaways. And if you don't know who the Runaways are, I have a video that outlines all of their initial members and what they do, and it's fascinating stuff. So if you want to see that video when we're done here, the link is in the description below. But a really brief overview is the Runaways are a group of kids, so kind of kids up through teenagers, that find out their parents are evil. Basically, some are aliens, some are mutants, some are crime bosses, which could tie into the other shows, right? And basically they find out their parents are doing horrible, evil things, so they run away, hence the name, and then they fight to stop this evil plot that their parents are hatching. It's a fascinating group of kids because they all have very eclectic powers, and it's just a very relatable, heartfelt story. The writing is incredible, the characters are interesting, and a 13-episode arc would give an ensemble like this enough time to get to know them, focus on different characters, give them some of that development, as opposed to a movie where very few ensemble movies get that time, to explore the characters and get to know them. So for 13 hours, we'd get a little bit more of that. It'd be a little smaller budget than a movie, but not, these kids don't have crazy powers that would be really hard to display, except for one of them has a telepathic velociraptor, which might be a bit of a struggle. But it's a really cool story, and I think the Runaways would fit in this world, since we already have all the seeds planted. We have, maybe instead of mutants, they'd have to be Inhumans. But we have crime bosses, we've got some kind of witch and magic stuff happening. We have all the seeds planted, and it'd be cool to see that kind of through another perspective. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out that video where I talk about those characters and what a movie or show about the Runaways might look like. So those are the four that I'm rooting for. But there's so many characters it could be. I've heard a lot of people talk about Blade, the vampire killer. Those rights are back with Marvel. That could be fascinating. Ghost Rider, maybe try to undo that Nicolas Cage stuff that happened. Some of those other darker, mystical characters could make an appearance. But who do you want to see? Are these characters you'd be on board with? Do you want to see other characters that haven't been explored? Who do you want to see get a 13-episode TV show? Dream big. So now if you haven't already, check out my other videos, subscribe, like, and make sure you head over to facebook.com/IAYTD. I post movie reviews, discussions, all these videos. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I'd really appreciate your support. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.